I saw in the past year, where people came on Bufo ceremonies, that more and more people are more conscious and more open for such experiences. And people are getting ready to confront themselves with their shadow part, to say. The medicine itself have many aspects. Our understanding of the psychedelic medicine are getting broader and broader each year. Is basically a tool for expanding our consciousness so we can understand ourselves more fully as a human being and as a soul being. I believe and I have very positive thoughts about the future of the psychedelic renaissance.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Psychedelic Conversations podcast. Today I have a returning guest, Changal. So good to see you again and welcome back.
Good to see you too, Susan. Super nice to have a conversation with you and super nice to have me again here.
Thank you. Thank you for creating the time in your busy schedule. And I just wanted to say to our listeners that this is our second conversation since the inception of Psychedelic Conversations podcast. And your episode, the first one, it's still the most watched episode in the entire podcast library. So that's incredible. Like this is, it's so powerful that, you know, you probably resonated with so many people. And it's just so good for us to have you back again, to have these conversations in this ever-evolving psychedelic renaissance that we are all witnessing. So I will be linking the first conversation into the show notes as well, in case our listeners want to go and check out the first one. And then we'll dive into our conversation today. And just to give a context for our new listeners, you are a facilitator of the Bufo Alvarius medicine, and you travel the world offering retreats and one-on-one and all kinds of medicine facilitation. So if we can maybe start with what's been emerging since we spoke last, and what are your observations in this growing psychedelic interest?
Mm-hmm. Where we were evolving was in last year, we started to host also different people that work also with medicine. We hosted Taita from Colombia, Taita Florecito, 2 times, and also a friend from Switzerland, Nicolas. He works traditional way to tobacco ceremony with San Pedro, where we basically introduced also our way of working with medicines that is basically not a traditional way, and is to say not formed in the way the traditions formed. So our way of ceremonies is basically more spontaneously evolving, to say, and each ceremony is not the same, to say, where the old tradition they are making by structures that are already existent in this space. And it was super nice to participate in such ceremonies, to see also different designs of ceremony spaces, to say.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm going to come back and ask you about your specific way of working with the Bufo medicine. But before we go into that, what are your observations since we spoke? What are you seeing happening in the world? Are you seeing more people are interested? Are you seeing like a more demand? And also, how do you feel about the educational part? The reason I'm asking you this because we are connected on social media, and I've seen a comment from you. I think it was one of the psychedelic medicine group. It could even be the Bufo Alvarius group. I'm not sure. And somebody was talking about how difficult their experience was, and obviously in the tone of the voice, maybe a little bit of a disappointment and a little bit of not really understanding what they just experienced. And I saw your comment really telling this person to embrace the difficulty, embrace the difficulty of this kind of work. And it is not that the medicine was doing something wrong or side effects or anything like that, but actually this is the process. I thought that was really powerful. And this again brings me back to our mission here in this podcast, that I think there is still a huge gap in education and really allowing people to understand what they are getting themselves into when they come to the medicine. So I think your approach is so direct, so open, and so sometimes can be quite raw, maybe confrontational, even confrontational, I dare say. So maybe you can speak to, like, firstly, the demands. Is it really increasing a lot that you're observing? And secondly, like, how do we close the gap of the education?
Basically, as I said, what can we do is basically just trusting the whole process, because we are collective conscious beings. So where we basically, I saw in the past year, where people came on Bufo ceremonies, that more and more people are more conscious and more open for such experiences. And people are getting ready to confront themselves with their shadow part, to say. And I believe also with work that we will see in the future will be very different that we know today, because we Western people are used to take psychedelics for the experience, and the medicine itself have many aspects to use it, and one of the aspects for the use is microdose. And it's basically not something new, but all the indigenous people do it around the world. Also the Huicholes in the desert, where they use peyotes, they basically use constantly small doses of the medicine itself. So our understanding of the psychedelic medicine are getting broader and broader each year, and is basically a tool for expanding our consciousness so we can understand ourselves more fully as a human being and as a soul being. So I believe, and I have very positive thoughts about the future of the psychedelic renaissance.
That's great. You said that you have a positive. That's amazing, because a lot of the time, there are a lot of people saying that this is going to go down, not really good. This is not going to, survive. We're going to experience a lot of backlashes, a lot of bad experiences, people are going to start using them unsupervised in the, you know, not so good environments and conditions and settings, so that we, you know, obviously I speak to a lot of people and there's loads of different opinions, mostly about this is going to be a repeat of the last time of the 50s where it was, you know, shut down and went underground. So do you think it's going to happen? I know you already said you have a positive outlook on this, but do you think we are now much more smarter, more educated with the help of the technology? We can actually stop that happening. Maybe with the help of education, we can at least contribute to a better positive outcome.
Exactly, yeah. The thing is that we basically don't understand the processes of psychedelic experience. And we see this with Bufo medicine, where people basically think that they will come for experience, like a mind-blowing experience, something will happen, they will see things and stuff. But basically what happens with each individual, that something resolves inside of them that is unresolved from their past, and can be a loss of a friend or a parent or any kind of traumatic event that in life is holding us back, that we cannot express ourselves as fully as we can as a human being. And is basically a healing tool that we will start to embrace more and more as a society. I believe people need to experience this, that they will start to understand that is not just an experience, to say. And in my past years, I saw on myself and also on some participants that came that were not in good shape, to say. And after few experiences, they started to get back on track in their life. And I believe more and more experiences, direct experiences from the people, more easy will be to understand and to just accept the natural medicine that surrounds us. It's also cannabis, ganja is one of these plants that is basically the ultimate one. And we can make like super mind-blowing medicine that will help us to come to alternative states where we will start to realize who we really are. And we can have for medicine, for clothing, for buildings, like for many, many things. And we as a society are not accepting this plant. And it's a huge blockage from our collective viewpoint, how we see our nature. And when we will start to change our perception, how we see the surrounding, the reality that we are living in, we will simply start to change this reality, because each one of us are own manifestor of own reality. And more people that will start to basically dream a better world, this better world will come to reality, to say.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Do you know, what I heard is that that shift in perspective is what humanity needs in order to bring about much better way of living, respecting medicines, respecting, life, for example, respecting who we are as humans and who we can be. Sometimes I look at the concept of remembering who you are, not so much in a spiritual approach, not so much like, oh, you are all gods, not like that. I am always looking at this from a perspective of remembering who you are just simply means being a good human for yourself, for your environment, for your relationships, for the planet. Just, you know, embodying this congruency in the mundane, because sometimes, you know, when, you know, so many times I see the concept of remember who you are thrown around, and unfortunately a lot of people, because of the escapism mind, they just want to take that as you know, oh, you become this transcendent godlike creature. So just wanted to say those things, my thoughts on that. But I know exactly what you mean, because I understand where you're coming from. You're just saying the potential of human, the full potential of what we can be in this life, as in this body, and creating abundance, peace, love, and togetherness, as that tribal spirit that we are wired initially, that got lost in growing up, or just got lost in the process of experiencing trauma, rejection, you know, all these things that affect us. So I'm hearing that given the right context, the right person in the right moment, with the right facilitator, this could create that shift. And then the person can go out in the world and start taking those steps to really embody their full potential. So is that correct? And you're nodding. I think I
exactly.
You agree?
Exactly. It's always about information. What kind of information we share to people? It's like taking seeds to people, and this seed will start to germinate, and from the seed will start to come a plant, and from a plant will start to bloom. So it's a process where it's basically self-resolving. When a person hears an information and he starts to work with this information, and by saying to remember who we are is basically to remember our indigenous part of humanity that we are constantly forgetting about. And the indigenous part of our humanity is basically very suppressed, especially from Western society. And when we will come back to this remembrance of indigenous society, we will start to learn from their culture, from their tradition. And their tradition and their culture is totally connected with cycles of our environment, of our life, of stars, of the planets. And is basically a tool of understanding not just ourselves as a human being, but as ourselves as a tribal being, to say, as a collective being. Because many times we think that we are operating on individual level, but we basically are operating on a collective level. And many experiences that we go through with psychedelics, we basically dive into our collective consciousness. And it's not something that is personal, but is just here to say, is present. And what can we do is just being conscious. It's like turning on a torch inside of the cave, where we start to see the cave, what is inside the cave. And after we start to explore, and we go towards the light, and when we exit the cave, we see that there's a whole reality around us. And there's basically a personal journey when we go inside ourselves and we start to ask questions about ourselves, who we are, or what I am or what I need to do in my life. Any questions that we start to question ourselves, we are basically diving into ourselves. And when we start to go to realizations, what we are and the self-worth that we find is just a blessing in our life.
That's so beautiful, Changal. I just want to track back a little bit. The example of being in the cave in the dark, it's very, very, it's just perfect metaphorically. Coming into the medicine work, this is the ground that we begin, because, humans, as humans, we developed such an incredible intellectual capacity. We try to understand everything intellectually, so we spend lots of time and money, education, reading, and understanding even the Eastern philosophies or the medicine, indigenous philosophies in the West, or the Western mindset tries to learn it intellectually through the intellectual capacity, but you're touching on something very primal, very human, and it's very real. And I feel like initially in the medicine work, this is what we need to tap into that primal being of just human, and then start doing the work in the cave, because when you're in the cave, you don't realize you're in the cave. When you're so limited in thinking that there is only this cave and then there is me, there's a division between you and the universe, you and the other people, you and the environment, you and others, even with the family members. And in the Western mindset is always about coming into the medicine work in the most fastest, accelerated way. What can I take away intellectually so that I can, tap into my God self or the powerful, empowered individual self? But you're saying it's actually the opposite. It's always about the collective, the unity. But first, we need to go into the cave and realize, switching on the torch and realize that we're so limited, do the work, and then walk out of the cave with that shift in the realization that this is not about you. You're just a small speck of the whole cosmos, the creation. And then the humility, and then the realization of your worth and the part that you play in this cosmos. I just get chills down my spine thinking about all of this. And I've never seen anyone put it into the most simple language in such energy that you do. So before we move on, I wanted to just give you the credit as a facilitator, because there are so many people working with medicines, so many facilitators, so many even therapists. As you know now, it's a very, very popular thing to study and become a psychedelic-assisted therapist. However, I believe that the person's progress, healing, the shift, and the authentic transformation they receive is almost critically tied to the facilitator. And you are literally the embodiment of that facilitator.
Thank you.
I hope you realize that. I think you do.
Super nice to hear these words. Thank you.
You are. Because I speak to, and I see, and I observe, and I witness so many people coming into the medicine work with the Western mindset, thinking this is a competition, thinking just like how we approach in life, in everything in the West. They come into the medicine work with thinking that this is a competition. The more I study, the more books I read, the more therapy certifications I get from these organizations, that they don't even have body of councils that could overlook and monitor and keep them accountable. Like, who's the people that are giving certifications out there? Who are these people? Who are the bodies behind monitoring and keeping them accountable. So can you see the mess, the chaos that we're creating in this beautiful sacred space? I'm sure you do.
Of course we do, because we do in Slovenia itself. We hear a lot of stories about people start to facilitating, and like many crazy stuff going on in the ceremony space itself. And just yesterday I had a conversation from a woman that smoked 5-time Bufo with a woman from Slovenia, and like had not nice experience even with her, but her aunt had like super amazing experience. And that's basically the part of the medicine where the medicine do its job, where we need, as a facilitators, we need to give space for the medicine, that the medicine can do its job, and the person itself. And from my observation, I basically saw in these past years that, like you were saying just a few minutes ago, how people found out about this medicine when a friend smokes it and have like wonderful experience, and then they even want to have it, and they come by with expectation that they will get the experience as their friend. But normally we see that people are getting ready by each experience. Some come to the experience already ready, conscious, basically. I saw connection for this experience, basically how we are conscious about ourselves, how we are consciously eating, how we are consciously working, what are our angles, basically our points in life. And in the past year, I saw more and more people really, really ready. There were old people, and they were more ready than the younger generation. And we even had super amazing experiences where we basically saw that more is less and less is more. Where a person came, this was just a week ago, and we shared with him just a microdose of Bufo, and he had more powerful experience when he smoked a full release dose. And everything is basically connected with our life path, how we are basically treating other people, how we are treating ourselves, how we are treating nature. Everything reflects inside the experience, basically. And if there are some cleansing parts that we need to get conscious about, people will have heavy experience, but will not be heavy that they will go crazy or something, but they will just go conscious.
And would you say that's the difficult experience? Do you know, I love what you're touching on. You're saying that the medicine is revealing. It's a revealing experience of what the person is already carrying. They are the container that the medicine is working with. And depending on where they are in their life path and their consciousness level, that's the level of revealing the medicine will bring. And would you say that the difficult experiences are difficult because the person is being revealed?
Mm-hmm.
the parts of themselves that is not working.
Mm-hmm. And if person resists, not accept, so we can get to such realizations basically when we are sitting just by ourselves in nature. We don't need to do much. We just need to be by ourselves, and our mind will start to resolve, open the channels that we will start to embrace ourselves and start to get conscious of ourselves basically.
That's
And
yeah, that's the most real thing I heard, Changal. You don't even need the medicine. The reason we don't need the medicine is because we all have it inside of us. Also, as much as there are traumas, as much as there are obscured, stuff going on, at the same time, we have the innate wisdom to overcome and have the same realization.
It's basically in our DNA. Every wisdom, every aspect of ourself is stored in our DNA. And we as a society have such tempo that we just cannot take time for ourselves. And basically the medicine that we are experiencing right now at the moment came in the right moment, to say. It's so powerful that literally blows people's mind. I was asked a few times in these past 7 years that if I would be open to share the knowledge how to share this medicine. But is to say there is no structure for such medicine. There is no pointers how to share. We can tell how to burn the pipe. Everyone will know how to burn the pipe. But what to do in states when people get stuck somewhere and cannot release and go a little bit further. And there are different cases where people need different kinds of to say approaching to them. Some people just need space, but some people need approach and need support inside the process. So is a field that is basically because of the laws that we have that is not allowed and is illegal. Because of this comes to such expression, to say. This is just an expression because we have these medicines as illegal. And when we will start to liberate these medicines, the field of medicine work will start to clear. And I believe we will experience in future years many psychedelic churches on a rise, because one of the first churches around the world was even in Slovenia. It was already formed in 90s, was called a Church of Sacrament of Initiation, and they used Iboga. And we also have now new churches in United States involved with Psilomethoxin. I just saw that you had an interview with Greg about their church and the rise of this knowledge about how basically we can start to get more liberated inside this work, and how we can start to connect with each other around the world, where we can basically share the knowledge about the medicine itself. What was our direct experience basically. And direct experience is at the end the most countable. And we saw in the past years basically a rise of Western psychedelic use. But on the same time, there was a rise of indigenous use of psychedelics. And this is in their tradition for thousands of years, to say. And when the Western society will connect with indigenous cultures, and we will start to share the knowledge with each other and accept the knowledge, many things will start to change, not to change, but to
shape in like
shape exactly. Yeah.
So thank you for bringing it up. Greg is one of our also returning guests, and Greg is lovely, and the work he's doing is just blows my mind. They did. They launched their first Psilomethoxin. Look, I can say it now. Can't say it, but they did. Just want to Changal, just want to kind of bring some threads to. You said so many things in the last 3 minutes that I could make 3 episodes of. So here's the thing. Right now we are experiencing currently, for our listeners as well, just to do a little recap, in the psychedelic renaissance, we are experiencing many organizations, many groups, many people doing different things. Just because we didn't have, obviously they are still illegal. That's why it's a very fragile and sensitive territory to even talk about structures. Firstly, the first step is that they need to be somehow decriminalized, or at least allowed in research studies, so that we can comfortably have these conversations. And then eventually, with the approvals and the potential research results, the decriminalization will happen in some way. In the US, we have now 2 states, 2 places. Oregon, I think Colorado is now legalized, many, 5, maybe up to different medicines. But obviously, for the rest of the world, it's still very much illegal, very much sensitive territory. So just saying that out loud, so we kind of put that context out. But obviously, going forward, there's going to be a lot of movements trying to shape structure and help us to bring some kind of steps in the process. And there are currently many models. There are I put it on a list here, actually. Decriminalization model. People are tirelessly trying to work and bring the decriminalization to it. MAPS Canada, all of these people are doing the scientific model, the political science, Rick Doblin calls it. They're really working hard with the research studies to bring some kind of relaxation to the system, so that they can finally do the important work. And then there is spiritual model, the churches, the community and all of that. There's an indigenous model, and there is a therapeutic model in the West, where psychiatrists, doctors, therapists are now opening clinics with ketamine, MDMA next, probably. And people can go in there and have a one-on-one therapies. Obviously, that's kind of the Western model. But what I wanted to say really, truly is that I think we cannot ignore the fact, especially based on what you said earlier, which was like a very powerful harm reduction flashlight here, which using these medicines without the context, without community, without accountability, without good connection to your people around you who can support you, keep you accountable. Like, accountability comes to my mind all the time. Every time I speak to different guests around, psychedelic experiences, accountability is screaming out loud. Like, we need other bodies, we need other people when we embark in this medicine work, to keep us accountable, keep us, help us navigate the territory. because, you know, sometimes we're not able to see and understand and grasp what we're dealing with. Like you said, it becomes a delusion. It becomes a way to take the person out. It becomes, you know, and I also want to touch a little bit on the psychotic breaks on Bufo and other medicines with you, but that could be done later. But I just wanted to clarify to our listeners that what you said is so powerful right now. And it just made me realize this is the reason we have these conversations, Changal, so that people like you can come and share the dangers, the best practices, the wisdom. It is not about just, you know, lighting, you know, what did you say? The pipe, you know.
Lightening the pipe,
Right.
exactly.
It's not about that, is it? It is never about that.
No.
Anyone can do that. Anyone can serve ayahuasca. Anyone can give someone a mushroom. Anyone can give. And you know what I like about this conversation the most, Changal, since the last time? I think last time we specifically focused on Bufo medicine, but I see that you are now broadening your conversation around talking about medicines, the whole spectrum. And you said earlier in the beginning about cannabis being the most sustainable tool in the world for humanity to embrace, but unfortunately it's been so stigmatized. So yeah, I just wanted to again, you know, share my gratitude to you. And let's come back to the churches and the community. Is this the model you're working towards? Creating community accountability, more like the spiritual work?
Yeah. That was basically one of my visions in life, how to live. Basically, how to live life fully. Basically, is to live in community, is to share experiences with other people. And one of the most connecting way of the community work was indigenous ceremonies from North America, tipi ceremonies, where the community gather few times a year. They have, I think, on equinox and on solstice, they have ceremonies where they come to pray for better relations, for health, for good future, for healthy kids. And it's a connection with our higher source, where we basically forgot in our Western society, because we were born, many of us, in Christian formation of structure of religion. And the prayer itself was like formed in a structure that somehow most of us were like repelled to pray. And in such ceremonies, we started to see what really prayer means and what a collective prayer as a community can do, to say. And this is one of the ways I saw basically my life, to be connected with indigenous ways of living life, to have this medicine that is not just medicine to drink or to eat, but the medicine that we are, being connected with community. And each one of us brings different kind of medicine that is his own essence, to say. And as I was seeing, each person on this world is basically a healer for somebody. And there's no shaman or healers or gurus around, but just people. Some are playing very good their role, but some, we don't want to step inside this role. And for me, this journey was in life till now was like an amazing journey of not just self-exploration, but exploration of human beings itself, to say, as a consciousness, as beings, to say. And psychedelics are just one tool to explore this reality. We have many other tools that is our breath, just simple breath. And then we have also cold water and also sweat lodges. And everything is basically opening our channels in our body and in our energetic system from the stimulus of from our environment, to say. And it's one of the most beneficial ways, to say. And for the community itself, these are the ways to reconnect, not just with medicine, but with dancing, going into cold water, and having fun with each other.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that ultimately coming into medicine work may look like you want to heal your individual stuff and become a better person, but ultimately they are just another door into coming back to our tribal spirit, to appreciating each other, community, relationship.
Exactly.
All of that.
And there where the healing happens, because basically we cannot heal our past. We cannot heal the scars that we have already on our body. We can just accept that they are there and start to live a better life and start to search for better experiences in life.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing, basically, that we start to embrace the shadowy part of ourselves.
The cave. Sit there enough times, then you walk away, walk out. What are your thoughts on? So, what are your thoughts on the psychosis, psychotic breaks, which I decided to call them breaking open?
Breaking open, yeah. In my past 7 years, I had experienced two times that a person have a psychotic break experience. One time was basically my father when he ate mushrooms, and the past experience, trauma experiences of his life that was suppressed, opened. And it came just in that time. Basically, I didn't understand what is happening. But by years of exploring, and after with Bufo medicine, I started to come to realizations that is just, like you say, is just breaking open. The thing is that things that are inside of us that are super traumatic is like a heavy stone inside of us that we are carrying, that we even don't know that we are carrying. And it's like a cramp that is holding this energy, this feeling. And when we come to a cathartic process of Bufo Alvarius process, if comes to a cathartic process, this will just come out, to say, will just like you would clear a toilet that is like very stuck, to say. And afterwards, everything flows. Everything in life starts to flow. At least I saw with my father, he started to live after this experience.
Yeah.
We had 3 years ago with a guy that came on ayahuasca, and he had like no, he came first on Bufo, and he could not release on Bufo. He was somehow holding the whole experience. And 1 week later, he came on ayahuasca. And on ayahuasca, basically, ayahuasca came to a point that he could release totally inside of ayahuasca state. And he was in that state almost for 2 days, where we were basically holding the space for him until he could not come back totally, to say. When he came back totally, he could go back home, to say. But after he came home, he had like a whole huge experience unfolding, to say. But when he came 14 days later on a visit, he said literally that after 7 years he can breathe unconsciously, that he can sleep normally, that he could not sleep for 7 years, and he could not breathe unconsciously. And he basically let go in that moment his dying father. And that's the main thing, that we as a Western society, we don't have we were not learned how to cope with trauma. And many people experience on daily basis traumatic experiences that cannot cope with them. And such experience can just release all the energy that was basically inside of the person, and this energy can be stored in our organs, on our muscles, on our bones, and then we get problems with our body, to say, because we don't accept ourselves, we don't accept what other people did to us, and we don't forgive, to say. And forgiveness is one of the first things that needs to be done. Forgiving ourselves for not standing for ourselves in the moments that we would need to stand for ourselves, and forgiving other people because simply they don't know what they are doing.
Yeah, everyone's acting out their own trauma, right? Unconsciously, obviously, unconsciously, everyone's operating from that energy of whatever the early wiring to life, how to survive. I like what you said, that in the West, we don't know how to release trauma. We don't know how to release, we don't know how to work with grief, loss. Loss and grief is like the big thing that comes up as well in our communities here.
True, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a general thing in Western society, basically. Death in itself, dying itself, is a taboo theme in our society, where it's basically very delicate thing to talk about. But more and more people basically start to get open to even talk about, because basically we are not so long here in this reality. No. And that can come anytime, to say, any time. And that's why it's the most powerful message from the Bufo was being grateful for each moment, each breath that we take, and is nothing more that we need. And that's basically the main message of Bufo medicine, the gratitude of being alive in moment now. But as I saw, not everyone that come to participate gets this message. Everyone gets what they need in the moment in their life. If people need to cry, they cry. If people need to smile, they laugh. And everything that is basically holding their back is just released in that moment. And is one of the best tools for Western society for releasing trauma. Because when we look the people of indigenous culture, they already doing this with ayahuasca and with different kind of healing techniques that they have involved in their life. We as a Western culture, we were basically colonized 1,000 years before America was colonized. So our roots were already taken out of the ground years before. And Bufo is one of the tools that help us regrow our roots, to say, to find the connection with nature, with people that we love, with nature, with this life itself. We start to not just enjoy life, but we start to love life. And being here is like really a blessing.
A brief gift, I say.
Yes.
It's a very brief moment of gift.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And Changal, you know, we talked about the breaking open situation with the other person that you mentioned. Just want to say something about that. I think if you, that person could have suffered a lot. That person, if you didn't understand what this breaking open looks like, and if you didn't understand that it was a release, not rather than something really bad is happening, I think, you know, that's what I talk to a lot of people who go to these retreats, and the facilitators, they don't understand what breaking open is, and they don't understand that anyone can go into a psychotic break during the medicine or after, or even weeks and days after, or even like not with the medicine, not just with the medicine, like we had an experience in our family where a sudden breaking open moment happened to a family member without anything. And, you know, anyone can experience this. I think one of my passionate educational piece here is demystifying the belief that healing, the real authentic healing, comes easy and comfortable.
Yeah, depends what kind of healing and what kind of experiences we had in our life. I myself, basically, I had like super nice childhood from my parents' point, with my parents' relation. But if I would not have such parents as I have, I believe would be different, and could be a lot of more work, to say. But I had open-minded father and mother, so they somehow supported my exploration, where even they started to get interested in this exploration. And one of my first experiences with breaking open was basically with my father. And like I said, back in days, I really didn't understand what was happening, and was somehow personally involved in the whole situation. But after years, I saw completely the same signs with the guy that happened with medicine. And is something that person just need to go through. We cannot stop it. We cannot do anything differently. We just need to give space for the person to go through this experience. And one of the first ayahuasca experiences I went with indigenous people, basically, I saw some indigenous people don't have experience even with breaking open, because this is not happening in their society. And they even didn't know what to do with the guy. So they put the guy out of the ceremony space so he would not disturb the other people. And this was one of the things I saw that is basically not right in such ceremony spaces. That we as a collective beings, we have a collective psychosis. It's not just from one person, but he is just expressing it. And the things that we start to learn is that we go together through these processes, that we stay with the person, that the person is not left alone.
I love this. I love this. You just touched on something very powerful. This is also my understanding. I always appreciate the person who's going through the most difficult experience in the circle as channel for all of us. And if we can have the capacity to be with it, then our capacity just accelerates and amplifies in the ways that we don't understand. It is literally, I see it as a group upgrade.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, like you said, this is very difficult for people.
Yes.
I experienced this in other people in medicine circles, and I heard people talking about it as, oh, it's because the space wasn't safe enough, or it's because the facilitator wasn't competent enough, or that's because the medicine was compromised, or that's because the person shouldn't have been allowed, they didn't screen them enough. I couldn't believe that the Western mindset, these kind of experiences don't have a space in our world. They are rejected. They are, shamed. They are seen as a corruption in the system. And those people shouldn't have come into the ceremony space and allowed to ruin the experience for everyone. These are the kind of comments I hear all the time.
Yeah, but for some people can come that they start to hold themselves, to say that they start to work with these states, to say. And it's interesting saying from, I think, I'm not sure from which person, but I read some time ago that basically the guy said that where the waters that mystic swims, psychotic drowns. So basically we go inside of the waters that are somehow uncharted. We don't know these waters, and that's why we started to do the practice that we start to introduce Bufo medicine to people step by step, not like throwing them inside the water and now swim, but like gently to learn about the waters and to learn how to approach the water and to learn how to swim inside the water. And it's like an analogy climbing the ladder. Like we go step by step, not just jumping on the top. And some people are ready for the top, but are like maybe 10% of people that basically come on ceremonies. Other people are basically just started to explore the medicine, to say it's getting like trendy. right now, to drink ayahuasca and to go on Kambo perch and to smoke Bufo. And I think it's just a rise, and after will come that the real people that are holding the space for real processes, for the real healing, will stay, basically, and the other people that are just riding the wave will disappear, just dissolve, like we dissolve in that in such states, to say.
Yeah.
And
one that's the positivity, the outlook that you said from the beginning of our conversation. That's the positive outlook, because nothing that isn't stable, the foundational or grounded, is not going to stand the
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's very interesting. That was exactly what I saw in the vision when I drank ayahuasca with Taita from Colombia, where we basically participated in their ceremonies, and their ceremonies are a lot of quietness is inside, a lot of calmness, not a lot of singing, and literally inside the vision it showed that the structures that are connected and that should stand even the most powerful frequency of dissolving state like Bufo will not dissolve that state. And the same is happening inside of our being. The structures that are healthy inside of the person, if their belief system is healthy and connected with nature, it will not dissolve it. It will dissolve only illusionary state. And basically it's a medicine of consciousness to basically sober us up. Like my friend said, Nicolas, who shares San Pedro medicine, let's drink more medicine to sober up. And literally every glass of San Pedro, you are more conscious and more connected with consciousness itself. And literally you start to see that we are connected on such level that we even don't need to speak to say.
That's very powerful. Wow.
And
that's the trust that I feel within an authentic person who gets it, who gets that this is a brief gift of life. And the more congruent and more authentic structures we build, that stands everything. Yeah.
And
just also take this moment to conclude about the breaking open situation with our listeners. I don't want to leave you guys on a cliff hanging. So the good news is that I've been so passionate to research enough. I've done so much research on this, and I discovered a group of wonderful people who came together to write a book, which is called Breaking Open.
Breaking Open.
And
nice one.
And they did an amazing sharing, personal sharing of their own breaking open experiences. And the good news is, just like you said, being with the difficulty of the experience, being with that person, connecting deeper, holding space, giving space, and taking care of them, and reinforcing the connection, and nourishing them with good food and mindfulness practices and a lot of love these people bounce back so fast, and they start to live a more congruent life with a new perspective, and they do come back around.
Mm-hmm.
It's wonderful. Just wanted to give that a closure. So that is also a gift for a person to actually change and transform.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's also with the guy that happened. He basically still comes on ceremonies.
Yeah.
He just had a breakthrough, to say, like breaking open.
Is a breakthrough. Exactly. It
It's
is.
exactly.
It is.
And after that, he literally was writing for 2 years for more ceremonies, where I basically said, like, now I feel that you are ready to go. And what he experienced on the next ayahuasca was super interesting. That happened on one ceremony, what was happening for him for 14 days after the first time. And he started to get more conscious about what's happening to him, what kind of things he's holding, and is a whole progress of people that were very, very damaged through their childhood, to say. And it's amazing to see even that healing is possible, to say.
Always. With the right holding, the container, the people, the trust that, that brings. That's really, really wonderful. Changal, I want to keep you for another hour, but I'm mindful of your time and mindful of our listeners. I think we should do these conversations annually with you. Every year, we'll have you back. There's so much you can share in our community. There's so much you can give to the world with your experience. And the reason I see you as one of those authentic facilitators is because you have that congruent structures that we talked about that comes from your family structure, your orientation, your family dynamic. You do everything with your family. You do everything in a community. I think that's that's what kind of separates you from the rest, and that's why you carry so much wisdom. And I think you are a gift to the medicine space as well. And
thank you.
Just before we let you go, I wanted to, you brought it up several times, and I don't want to ignore it because this is my passion. You talked about microdosing the medicine. There is nothing that I can, agree with more. I think microdosing is super potent. All we need is the right container, the right people, and the right processes. And in my also experience, microdosing can be more potentially healing than any big doses or heroic doses that anybody can take. And thank you for bringing that up again and again. And would love to hear your last words on the microdosing and why you always bring it up, and what are you observing?
Basically, it's a part of my life. I was basically constantly on medicine. Last 17 years, I believe it's almost whole 17 years that I was on medicine, to say. And
so that's like the microdosing over long periods of
time. And the powerful doses are just to open us, as from my experiences, where we can ground the information with microdoses more firmly, to say. And the thing is that basically we enter a state of higher consciousness, as we could imagine, like 3D, 4D, 5D. With a big dosage, we enter a 5D state of consciousness, where there's more conscious way of being, of trusting and seeing the abundance and seeing the possibilities around us. And after we come from the experience, we can experience like coming back, like calm downs. And with microdoses, we can basically elevate constantly, that we are constantly in this state. And I believe Psilomethoxin will be one of very good tools also to explore microdosing, and even big dosages. I don't know even how they act, to say, but I'm more interested to experience microdoses with Psilomethoxin, where the guys from the church, they describe it as elevating our consciousness, to be constantly in 5D consciousness. And I believe people will see more and more benefits of medicine itself with microdosing. Yeah. And it's one of the things that basically natives do it all the time.
Yeah.
Our approach as a Western culture was getting a bigger dose, a stronger medicine, more distilled medicine. We, as a Western culture, we basically invented LSD that is so powerful that is just a grain of sand, and we have like experience that we cannot imagine.
Yeah. But with the microdosing, you maintain your states of authenticity. You know, when you say 5D, 3D, like 3D, 4D, 5D consciousness, I'm a mundane person. I know like yes. Our listeners are very much kind of educated on this kind of understanding, but I'm a very a person of mundane. So I thrive, or my passion is to how to become a good navigator in the mundane. Therefore, I understand my interpretation of staying or touching or being in the 5D means being in that elevated state of being a good human. So so you're not entertaining. You're not entertaining the scarcity. You're not entertaining the doubt, the limited mind. You're not entertaining all these limitations and adaptations that we developed growing up. You have a much more abundant mindset.
Exactly.
There is no competition there. There's a collective tribal spirit there, and that's 5D for me. Yeah. Great. And can you just say one more thing about Psilomethoxin? What is it for our listeners?
It's basically a new tool that came like 2 years ago more to public. Before, Sasha Shulgin was already speculating that we could give mycelium tryptamine molecules that they could transform it and synthesize it. So the guys from America, the war veterans, they started to make exploration with this, and they started to feed mycelium with 5-MeO-DMT, where mycelium biosynthesize 5-MeO-DMT into Psilomethoxin.
That's incredible. That's just so clever. Isn't it incredible?
Super amazing. It's I think it's a revolution of 5-MeO DMT ingestion, because we are used to smoke 5-MeO DMT or to sniff it as a synthetic part. And every part of this ingestion is so sudden and so quick that some people can get scared to say. It's so quick that it's like straight away. And with such kind of medicine, people that are tended to hold the experience of 5-MeO DMT from Bufo or synthesized smoked version will be more easily to embrace this state of consciousness, to say.
Wow, that's a very revolutionary tool.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes sense. In the Fantastic Fungi, there is a lady that talks about the mushrooms. They are not plants and they're not humans. There's something in between, and it just makes sense. So in the nature, they dissolve things, they eat things up, they turn things into something. So they are literally tool for what you said, it's a natural synthesizer.
Yes.
So could you, I bet there are a lot of people out there, all creative people, probably thinking of feeding cannabis to mushrooms, or do you know what I mean? Just kind of bringing out new tools, I guess.
Yeah, they started to even give DMT to cactuses and also to ganja plants, where they saw that the plants are giving more of what they are, basically.
Wow. Okay, this is so powerful. Okay, let's end it there, because that could be another hour conversation. Do you know, having conversations with you after just reflecting, I realize we don't know nothing. Like, I realize how limited we are in human mind. And yeah, it just humbles me, and really humbles me more and more. Thank you for your time, for everything you do. Appreciate you so much.
You're welcome.
And look
forward. So it was
yeah.
super nice to talk to you again, and like you are an amazing person that you are doing this job.
Thank you.
And just doing it further with more and more people that can share things about exploration of psychedelics, of ourselves, of life itself, of being here.
Yeah, that's the intention. Bring as much education as possible to the people so that they can make their own decisions and understanding of what we're dealing with. Amazing. Thank you, and look forward to having you back. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and also standing this long. I think it's been an hour and a bit now. Please do share your comments, reach out to Changal, comment and share and ask questions, and let's keep the conversation going. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you so much. And thank you, Changal. All the best. Thank you so much for joining us. Psychedelic Conversations podcast is designed to educate, inform, and expand awareness. For more information, please head over to psychedelicconversations.com. You can also share with your friends or leave a review so that we can reach more people. You can also join us in our private Facebook group to keep the conversation going. This show is for information purposes only, and it is not intended to provide mental health or medical advice. Thanks for listening.